It's a How to Shoot Hybrid podcast discussing topics around photography, videography and running a business. My name's Jules and I'm here with Kieran.
Good evening. Kieran. Tell you what, that intro is a bit of a tongue twister. I'm glad you do it because I think I'd struggle doing it. I'll try one day.
Well, I messed up last time.
You did mess up last time, yeah. Many people were very disappointed in that one, Jules.
So, thank you all for joining us, and on this episode we are going to be talking about stuff to do with second shooters, associate shooters, and how you can kind of adapt and get used to working with different people. This is a topic that came up because me and Kieran have worked for each other in various ways recently and will be doing in the next few weeks. So we thought it'd be good to kind of go through that. And Kieran can give me some feedback on how he felt. I shot a wedding for him that he's in the process of editing.
Live face-to-face feedback. Re-editing, yeah.
Live, yeah. So you've not told me yet, so you might be really...
Have you got a
might
beer?
be really squashing my...
your ego here.
Yeah, or a few whiskies.
Yeah.
So just kind of, I haven't made a load of notes for today because I was in the middle of making the kids tea when I decided that this is the kind of topic that we'd do. So I'm just kind of freestyling a little bit. So second shooting, Kieran, how often do you use second shooters? And when we talk about second shooters, for anybody listening, we're talking about somebody who you would hire to work with you as a second photographer, second videographer, or something similar to that.
No, I reckon I'd probably use about 25% of my weddings. I'll use a second shooter, so not that many.
Oh, that's quite high.
Do you think that's high?
I would have said that's quite high.
All right, okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's not.
No, I mean, like the majority of the time, people want a second shooter is when they book the photo/video package. If it's just photo by themselves, I don't think they really book that often. I think the only time they book is if I recommend it, if they've got a certain amount of like guests or long distances between prep and ceremony and whatnot. But yeah, I think the majority of the time when it's photo, it's just myself. But yeah, I'd say 25% really.
That's a good, that's a good way to start discussing it then. So circumstances where a second shooter is a good idea or even essential. Yeah. And you've obviously mentioned there about distances and things. You see, I always think if they want both preps capturing and they're in different locations, that's a second, you need an extra person, an extra pair of hands. If you have, it's logistics. And I would say church weddings, kind of religious weddings that are going to be in churches or temples, any kind of religious element to it, because they just tend to have more moving parts to them. They tend to be longer. They tend to be more difficult to shoot than a civil ceremony. In the UK, we pretty much have two different types of wedding, don't you? You either have a religious one or you have a civil ceremony. And then occasionally you get a celebrant-led one, but they tend to be very similar to a civil ceremony. And then obviously you've got your different cultures, your different religions. Anything that's in a big church or a big, when you say you said lots of guests. So why do you think lots of guests are important? Is it important to have some?
I think just to get the extra candids, cover more angles on the day. More for the fact especially if I'm taking the couple away for portraits and whatnot, then there's someone else there to capture the moments in between whilst we're away. But it might. I normally say anything over 100 to 120 guests, I'd recommend a second shooter. So yeah, it's more to capture the extra angles and whatnot, really. When
And how do you establish that? Are you doing that on inquiry? Are you doing that through discussion when once you've kind of been booked?
Yeah, a bit of both, really. I think when people initially inquire, there's always the option to book a second photographer, and even if they don't, a couple of months before the wedding, I'll approach them, and even if it's just a small wedding, I'll always give them the add-ons that I sell, saying you can still purchase some of these if you want to. I mean, like, it's a bit of an upsell, isn't it? And like sometimes they might have a bit of extra cash that they didn't expect, and other times they don't bother. But yeah, I think that's the way they approach it. I mean, like now and again, about a month before the wedding, we'll sit down and have a video call, and I'll just run through things. And if I think they benefit from a second shooter, I'll tell them straight, and I'll be honest with them that I'll think that they are. And it's kind of up to them then, isn't it? Rather than leaving it to yourself to decide it, just give them the option. But yeah, I mean, I don't really shoot that often with the second shooters. Really, not many. Like I said again, 25% of weddings. So it's normally just the larger venues, or like you said, the logistics of it that they're. But I almost feel like sometimes as well, people assume that having a second shooter is going to be more beneficial when it's not always the case, is it?
No, maybe not. So tell me why you think that, because I'm going to come at it from a slightly different place in a second, because I haven't worked with a lot of different second shooters, because for many years my wife worked with
All right, rub it in.
So, but to be honest, that is like a less likely situation now. I'm trying to move away from her coming to weddings with me. So, you know, she does, and she will come to some with me. Still will be using her for some that I've already booked, but going forward I'm trying to avoid assuming that she's going to come with me and kind of having it in my mind that I will use other people. And for me that's difficult because I haven't had to do it, so I don't have as much experience of doing that.
Downsides to having a second shooter, I suppose there's not really massive downsides. It's more of a personal preference, isn't it? But I think one of the ones is style. You're going to have to try and find a second shooter that's got a similar style or understands your style. And I think the other one for me, which is really bad, but I quite enjoy socializing and talking. If I've got a second shooter, I've really got to concentrate on actually doing my job rather than just stood around chatting and like forgetting actually I'm not a guest at a wedding. I've got to capture. I mean, like me and you've been on weddings before where, I mean, like we've worked, but that summer one where we had a bottle of cider each and we're just chatting away thinking actually we could easily just sit down and just natter all day, couldn't we? But I think that I struggle a little bit with the second shooter. Yeah. I relax a little bit too much thinking there's two of us. Between two of us, we're going to capture a shit ton of content where in actual fact, it's not the case, is it? You can't really relax because if you're both thinking that way, then you're going to be scuppered when you come into the edit, aren't you?
That's right, yeah. Okay, so like for me, having my wife with me, I kind of, Lindsay didn't really have an awful lot of, well, she didn't have any experience. Well, neither of us had any experience in photo and video when we started, but obviously I was more into it and I was kind of learning all about it and I was developing skills and a style in that. So I was kind of passing that on to her so that from the start we shot in the same way and she knew what I was looking for in the edit. So that was helpful. And that's why I can't imagine having, like, I've used you before and I've used other people, but I can't imagine just using some random person because I would be sort of like thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to get. Whereas like Lindsay's not, you know, she'll admit she's not the best photographer or videographer in the world, but she knows what I'm looking for. So I'm already confident that she's going to have got what I'm looking for, even if it's not technically the best, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and there's definitely there's a safety blanket there. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not wondering whether she's going to have got certain things in a certain way. She's going to have done that. And obviously, sometimes the quality will be higher than others depending on the kind of, you know, circumstances and the technical situation, lighting and things like that. It's not her lighting and things like that isn't her strength. Like I've literally had to kind of say to her, look, this, you know, like say, I think you're going to need to use the flash, and I know you're not used to using the flash. So just this is the settings you're going to use.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Literally give her the flash like a minute before she walks in a room, and just kind of fingers crossed it all works out.
Yeah.
But you know, it has, and that's a very rare occasion.
Yeah.
But obviously, at least I feel like I can do that. Whereas if I was using a second shooter that I'd never shot with before, I'd never used, I'd be thinking, you know, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, they could be great, and that's why it's much better when you've got someone that you've worked with before, like yourself. So yeah, how would you normally go about finding a second shooter?
I think, I mean, like we've been pretty lucky, I suppose, haven't we? Because there's only a handful of people that I trust. Not even trust, but I know that help me out second shooting, and I'd be comfortable like leaving them to do their own thing and whatnot. So I can kind of just call upon you, 2 or 3 guys that I've got, or gals. But I do see a lot of the time, and I think it's rightly done. If people like in these Facebook groups and whatnot that we're following, or that we're in, if people are requesting a second shooter, like a lot of people do bullet point what the second shooter needs to do. So like the cameras, well, personally, I don't think the camera system should really matter that much, but the lenses they use, I think that's kind of relevant. Their style, whether they're confident. I mean, like if a venue, you need flash at the venue, whether they're confident in flash, I don't know, experience shooting candids or documentary style or whatever you expect your second shooter to do, or like experience covering groom prep by themselves, because they'd have to go. So I think if you are looking for a second shooter, you've just got to kind of be very clear on what you're looking for and what you expect from them, because I think that'd kind of whittle a lot of people out if they thought, well, actually, I'm not very good at flash, or I'm not comfortable with doing groom prep by myself, or something like that. Then,
and do you think that people are honest about that?
Yes and no. Yes and no, but I think you'd ask for their portfolio or the links, wouldn't you, if you didn't know them, to see some samples of their work. If a second shooter was a really important part of getting it right for you for the wedding, if you see what I mean. Does that make sense? I didn't say that very well, did I?
No, that makes sense. I mean, like you say, with the groom prep, if it's getting candids at a reception, you can kind of be like, well, you know, if they're not perfect, they're not perfect. I'm going to be there getting the majority of stuff anyway. But if you're asking them to do groom prep or bride prep or whatever it is on their own, and you can't possibly be there, that's what I mean by, you know, I've been fortunate that I know Lindsay's getting what she's getting, and I know what's going to be there when I get into the edit. If I hadn't worked with someone before, that would be, you know, you'd be kind of doing your own job and thinking, second guessing and thinking, crikey, like I don't know what I'm going to get.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, if you didn't have that personal connection with somebody and you haven't worked with them before. And that's why when I see these posts in the groups, and this is another reason actually why I thought this would be a good topic to talk about, as well as because we've been kind of helping each other out recently, but as well because I see more and more, I don't know if it's just at the certain times of the year, you know, like when it gets to the summer and everyone's really busy, but I see so many more posts that are kind of appear to be quite last minute, looking for second shooters or looking for associates in the groups. Yeah. And I just think, I don't know if I could run my business like that, where now if the shit hits the fan and you don't, your usual stock of people that you would call on to do your second shooting, your associate shooting, whatever, you have to go to the groups, then that's fair enough. But there's far too many posts in those groups for it to all be an emergency.
There is a lot.
Do you know what I mean? Like some of this shit is like people double booking on purpose and taking more work on. And
100%.
I saw one today that were like offering 400 quid to associate shoot somewhere down south and listing what they needed for this 400 quid. And I was just thinking, like, I'm not the sort of person to go, that's fucking out of order, on someone's post. But that's what I was thinking, because I was just thinking to get to ask, to look, to find some random person who is good at what they do, and you can trust them to take this wedding on for you. You've never met them. You know what I mean? Like, and you're asking for somebody to like put themselves forward. And there'll be people that do it and they'll be good. Though they might be good. But like,
it's a risky business, isn't it?
It's a risky business, yeah. It's a risky business doing it. But when you're not when I've had to do it before, I've offered people more money. You know what I mean? Then there was one job and I paid someone more money than I thought they should get for it. Not because they asked for the money, but I just offered them it. Yeah. Because I was like, there was two photo and video jobs on the same day that we ended up having. It's a long story. So Lindsay went to one and I went to the other, and I needed people to come and help me, and she needed someone to basically go with her and just take over.
I think I remember this because I think you asked if I was available.
You weren't available.
Yeah, I remember that.
And like, I paid the person. I knew them. I'd worked with them before, but I'd worked alongside them, if that makes sense, at our wedding. And for me, the main factor is I know that they're not a dick. So I know that if they're representing you, that's the biggest deal for me. Like the actual technical ability is kind of, it should be good. They need to be able to take photos or do video, but the primary thing is, are they going to communicate and be a decent person with the couple and the guests?
Yeah, definitely.
Because if they're not, then that's a massive issue.
No. You don't want,
you can't.
You don't want someone awkward turning up on the day and giving bad vibes, do you? Especially when they're representing you. Funnily enough, I was talking to, so I jumped on fairly last minute to a second shooting job the other week, and I was talking to the main photographer there, and we were talking about associate shooting, and she said, "Would you ever do it?" And I said, "Well, I had to do it in COVID times because of like postponements and then double bookings and whatnot." And the other day you had to associate shoot for me, or the other week. So I've done it before, and like I have thought about in the future potentially on days that I'm already booked up, if I get an inquiry looking for an associate to shoot it and I edit it. But she was quite against it because she looks at it as herself as the brand. And I totally agree. Like I'm the same. Like my business is Kieran Paul Photography, so to have someone associate shoot for me doesn't really seem right. But I think the more I'm in it, and the more I realise that other people can shoot the way I like the style and the way I like to edit, it's almost like a business opportunity, isn't it? To move forward, make a bit of extra cash.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so this is another topic that I actually think it's on a list somewhere that I've got to cover at some point, is brand names and business models. But like, for instance, my business is called Your Story Studios rather than my name, because I never wanted to. I always knew that Lindsay would be shooting with me. So unless that was the plan back then. It's not now, but it was like if if we would either have to be called, you know, the Nelsons,
Hey, I
or
quite like that.
something, you know. Well, you know, the photographers I was talking about before, their name was their surname.
Was it?
And they're a husband and wife team. And I've met a few husband and wife teams that just use the surname and like call it that or whatever. But all like whatever, you know, we could call it our first names, and it could be, you know, Jules and Lindsay or whatever, you know. But the reason I didn't do that is because I kind of knew that it wouldn't just be me.
You isolate yourself a little bit.
I did want to give... Yeah, you're definitely tying yourself to the brand, aren't you? But again, like, I don't want to go too deep into this topic because it's something we can talk about another time. But I wanted to keep it open because part of my business model was always potentially having that kind of bigger studio model where I had different people shooting for me. But obviously, the more I started doing this, the more experienced I got, and the more I got into it, the more I realised that I don't think I could just be sending 5 or 10. Apart from the fact that I don't want to do it because I think it's too much to administrate. You know, having all these different people shooting, and I've seen it done well, and I've seen it done horribly. And there's some cheap ass companies around here that do it horribly, and they don't even know who's going to go to that wedding. They're literally just working it out at last minute, and so people are getting let down. People are getting really shit work done because they're just literally scrambling to get someone to go to this job. Because I've been randomly contacted by people before that run those types of businesses.
Funnily enough, I saw an ad on.
No, I'm not doing it.
Saw an ad on Facebook, and it was one of these businesses advertising a job. I think it was something like £1,000 a month or something. So not a bad money for like a student or whatnot. But yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because they literally will just pick and choose anyone and give them a camera. And I mean, like, I've even been to a wedding where this was the situation, and they just got this randomer to come and film it for the business, and he ended up just driving off, never giving them the footage back. It's bizarre. Like, that's it. Your wedding video is no more. It's finished. It's done.
Jesus,
it's mad, isn't it?
That's horrendous, isn't it?
But it happens though, doesn't it? Yeah.
Because that's the problem, isn't it? This isn't stuff that can be redone. This is once in a lifetime event. Yeah. And if you hire a photographer or hire a videographer to capture that event, like, if they're shit at it,
that's it.
That's an issue. If you were really particular about how you wanted that capturing, you know, like you had a real vision in your mind. And I think that we both work on, our business model is both about trying to give something specific to a couple. It's not just photo and video, stock photo and video. We're trying to give them something specific that we create. But you could just, you know, at least if someone just captured the wedding and they just got some shit video or some shit set of photos, at least you've captured it. But if someone just fucks off and doesn't give them the footage, and you can't go back and redo it, can you?
You can't.
It's horrendous.
Funny.
And that's the thing I don't think couples are realise when they're getting into that sort of thing.
They don't. Yeah, I was going to say something else then, but it's going off in a different tangent from this subject, so we'll stick to our guns this time.
That's not like us.
Stick to our guns this time and stick to associate and second shooters. So the other one with associate shooting that I was going to say, and it kind of brings it around to your feedback as well. Are you ready? Can you hear that drum roll? I haven't never had an associate shooter do video for me before. All my associates that I've ever used, right. I mean, like, I'm talking, when I say all, I think I've had 3 associate shooters in the past before, due to the majority of them was COVID, I think. And photo-wise, easy peasy, because you kind of know what you're getting with the photos, don't you? So you can cull them.
Well, if they've shot a wedding before, then hopefully they follow the model of this is what a wedding looks like, and I know where to be at the right time. Yeah.
So you cull them and you edit them. So you associated for me the other day doing video, and I found it trickier. And the only reason I found it trickier is because I wasn't there on the day. So I couldn't quite. It took me a while to get the flow of the feel of the story of it. So I struggled a little bit more than I expected, actually. But luckily, you
I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what you do with it.
Jesus.
Because
luckily you shot an absolute ton of stuff. So like there was loads for me to choose from, and yeah, it was just finding the right music and whatnot for them. But yeah, the initial the start of it, I struggled to get the flow of it. But yeah, eventually got there with it. I mean, like, luckily they did some quite nice speeches and stuff as well. So
that's what I was just literally going to say to you. I kind of So for me, the best weddings are the ones with the good speeches, and we are not in the UK. I don't think we're blessed like they are in America. No. Where in the US, in North America, Canada, whatever, they fucking love their speeches, don't they? You know, everyone gives speeches,
and they'll
like
say
10
some really heartfelt stuff as well.
Say some really nice things, and they know how to write a good speech. They know how to speak properly. Most of them will not sound like me from Yorkshire with a thick kind of accent. They'll sound quite well spoken. Here, it's very hit and miss.
Yeah, it is. I actually had
get some that don't even do speeches.
No, I actually had one, and the opening line, I can't remember exactly what it was, but he was referring to when he had deli belly. So he had a really bad stomach when he was in India with his fiance that he just proposed to, and she cleaned up all of his mess for him. And I was like, so how am I going to add this?
How did you incorporate that?
How am I going to add this into the film? I couldn't incorporate that, could I? I mean, the thing is though, like, would they want that?
Well, you probably could. It would have been a bit of an odd one.
I don't know. I don't think she looked too impressed by it. So to add it into the opening scene of a film or something probably wouldn't be a great idea. But yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You watch some kind of American style films, and don't get me wrong, there are some in the UK that have absolutely amazing speeches, but you look at the American ones and you're thinking it's not fair, really. Like, they've got so much to use, so much to play with, and like, you know, some of the speeches that we get, they really are not, you know, and I'll be honest, because my style isn't fixed, I'm quite happy to where I know, like, if I'm stood there listening to the speeches thinking, nope, this is shit, like, I know I'm just using music for this wedding highlight film. Do you know what I mean? Like, I and it's part of the reason I give that I do doc edits for nearly every film now, every couple, and I do it because if I'm giving them that doc edit, I can do whatever I want with the highlight, and I kind of make that clear in the and if the speeches are great, then it's going to have the speeches in there, and it's going to be really kind of like storytelling. And if it's not, then I find a really like strong song that kind of does the storytelling for me. You know, it'll be a vocal track that's like kind of got nice words and some nice crescendos and stuff in it, and I'll hang it on that, because there's nothing worse than trying to, you know, I watch some people's wedding films from the UK that usually people who are like in the first few years and they're learning how to kind of do it, but they've seen other people, other videographers using the storytelling style and having the speeches in there. And so they just pick out any dog shit bits of speeches out and then try and put them in, and you're thinking, it's not adding to it.
It's not that powerful, is it? No.
It's not. It's pointless. You just, you know, this is not a good speech. You know, like, you need, if you're going to do it, you need them to be good speeches. You need it to be good audio bites. You know, and I do like some commercial work, so I'm used to picking out audio bites to make, to make a narrative. With that, and it's the same. You know, you're looking for specific things. You're not just looking for any old words.
No, you're right.
But yeah, that's. I'm definitely going.
You're
off
going on a tangent there, Jules. But yeah, speech is a big thing. So if any brides and grooms are out there getting a film, make sure your speeches are decent.
Yeah. So those speeches at that wedding were
Yeah,
good.
get
And I
away with them.
remember them being good. I mean, they were long.
They were long.
They went on for nearly an hour.
But I have chopped just the best bits to put in. I mean, like,
Yeah.
between the readings from, I don't know who he was, the American bloke. He did the second reading, or Canadian or something.
There was 2 readings, and then there was the third reading was the bridesmaid,
yeah. Right.
which the audio won't be as good on that because I couldn't. Yeah, but I couldn't mic her, so that's off. That'll be off the registrar's mic.
Well, no, it's clear enough for me. Anyway, so his reading was great. Her reading was great. That's like 7 minutes worth of audio right there.
Then there were good readings as well, weren't there? There were nice readings.
I don't think I used the bridesmaids one in the end. It might be kind of parked up just in case. Bit of their ceremony and a little bit of their speech together, and a little bit of the dad's speech. So I've got altogether about 11 or 12 minutes worth of decent audio to put into that. So it's kind of like chopping and changing. We're going off on a right tangent, aren't we? Chopping and changing some of the footage to fit what people are saying and whatnot. But yeah, it worked well. I was quite lucky with that, I suppose, with the speeches side of it, because that's probably saved my bacon a little bit on that edit. Made it easier for me anyway.
So take me back then. Yeah. So yeah, you're looking at the footage and you're saying you found it harder because you weren't there, so you couldn't get the
flow of the.
So what did you think about why do you think that you couldn't get the flow of it? What?
I think for me, when I'm at a wedding, if I'm filming it, I'm almost creating the storyline as I'm going along throughout the day. So like at the end of the day, when I'm driving home, I'd be like, well, so that part would be good to begin with. That part would be nice to end with. I mean, like, it doesn't always have to end on a first dance or anything, does it? It could end up at the first kiss or something, I don't know. But just the storyline, I can almost create it in my head. And from the feel of the day, in my head, I can almost picture what the music's going to be like that I want as well. So like if they're a really lively couple, get a quicker tempo to it, or if they're quite just chilled out, relaxed couple, just have a slower tempo bit of music to it. But I think because I wasn't there, I couldn't quite get the feel of, I mean, actually, again, going back to the speeches, I think I almost got the feel of what the wedding was like from the speeches and listening to what they were all saying about each other. But yeah, I think that's the trickiest thing about having an associate for video, was just getting the feel of the day itself, isn't it? Whereas like when it's photo, you kind of, there's nothing to do. It's just you're editing and dropping some color on the images, really, aren't you, that have been captured. You can almost, I mean, like you can see what the day was like, because it's just a still image, where you almost video, you've got to create that feel again for them, don't you?
Yeah, it's not just an aesthetic.
No, it's not.
So you're, with the photo, you're just turning those images into your aesthetic. Yeah. And they might not feel quite the same because they might not have been shot on the same lens. They might not have been shot with quite the same perspective and composition, but it'll work.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll still look similar. Yeah. Like they're not going to be night and day different. Whereas with video, I suppose, like for instance, you don't use a gimbal, do you?
You do.
So I did. I mean, I always do both. I probably use the gimbal for about 20% of the day, but you know, if you don't ever use a gimbal, you won't really be used to having any shots where it's got that kind of movement or feel to it. Again, I shoot on different lenses to you. Mm-hmm.
So on that day, then, what lenses did you shoot on that day?
Well, I kind of shot similar to how I would normally shoot. So on my gimbal camera, I will have had either a 24mm or a 16-35. But either way, it's going to be around the same focal length, because I'm probably not going to have it completely zoomed one way or the other. So it's going to be around sort of 24-35mm, I would say, on that. And then I've got a longer lens that's got 35-150 on. So that is basically getting different types of shots because I'm getting really close-up stuff. I'm getting stuff that's a little bit wider. Like, that's going to be more, you kind of, on that, you're going to have some shots from further away that'll be full kind of width, that'll be wider shots, but the majority of them will be kind of like mid and tighter shots. Like more detail and kind of more intimate feeling, but from further away. So instead of being like, I don't tend to shoot close to people, especially when I'm shooting video. I tend to shoot from 10 to 20, 30 feet away, so that they're not even aware that they're being filmed as much as possible. Obviously they will be at some point. So like I can think, and then I'll have another camera which I'll use like ceremony speeches, which will just be sort of locked off on a tripod, usually like at the back or further away, that'll be getting those tighter shots. So that, for instance, ceremony, there'll have been a camera at the back that'll have been looking down the aisle from quite far away, but it will have been, I think it will have like full length, so you got to see them. It's a weird one shooting that type because you're against those windows.
It's difficult. It's a difficult venue, that, for me, I think.
You've just got to choose, haven't you? You're either when you've got a backlit situation like that, you're either silhouetting and then you can't really see the bride and groom. You can just see some people, or you kind of go more with the exposure of trying to be able to see them, and the lights funky as fuck in there, because it's like you've got daylight mixed with orange candles and orange lights and chandeliers and stuff.
It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one to film that. But yes, overall, Jules absolutely smashed it for me, so thank you very much for covering me there. Saved my bacon. And again, in a couple of weeks' time, we're working together again, aren't we? So I don't even think you know. Yes. Do you know where you are on that one?
I haven't got a clue, mate. Where is it?
We're in Scotland, mate. Oh, bloody hell. No, we're not. We're not. Down the road. I think it's...
I thought I was like, are you serious? Like, you're about to see me get pissed off on video?
Fucking hell. No, I think it's in between me and you. It's probably bang on in the middle, I think. We'll have a quick chat afterwards and make a plan. But yeah, proper cool couple. So yeah, I think that'll
cool.
Be a good
So
one.
I'm second shooting with you on that day, but I'm imagining that I'm doing, well, you're doing photo and video with that one, aren't you?
Yeah. So both getting ready in the same location, so that's easy peasy. So bridal prep, groom prep, we can kind of just both mix, run around between and do our thing. Yeah, but it'll just be a case of winging it on the day and closing our eyes and hoping for the best, really.
Just put that on your advert.
Yeah.
We just wing it. We close our eyes. We hope for the best.
Maybe that's what I'll call it. Wing It Films. Wing It Productions. Hey, I quite like that. Might go with it. No, it'll be a good day, actually. Nice couple. I've worked with some of their friends before. I did their wedding for them, so it's kind of like a referral that way, which is always really nice, isn't it?
I think they're the best ones.
Well, they know what they're getting, don't they? So there's no pressure, really.
Yeah, they've hired you because they liked that. It's interesting, the wedding I did last weekend, the photographer, like, because it was a bit of a saga to start with, because I remember I was in Ibiza last year shooting a wedding. Doesn't happen that often, but we'll throw it in there. It sounds cool. And I got this inquiry, and I ended up having a call with them while I was in Ibiza, because they wanted to have a call and chat through with it really, like, straight away.
Yeah.
And because like I've got a thing where you can book a call, and they just booked this call straight away, and I hadn't turned any of the freaking things off, and I'm like, I don't want to turn it down now, but I'm going to be at the airport. Anyway, so I thought that they were inquiring about photo and video. Anyway, long story short, they were really keen, and then I didn't hear anything for months, and then they got back in touch, and they were like, oh, we just want to inquire about video now. And I'm like, because I'm thinking, not because that's the problem, but I was just thinking, oh, what didn't they like about my photos? Do you know what I mean? And like, that's fine. I don't care whether people book me for both or just one, but it was like, then it was months again. I didn't hear from them, and I'm thinking, I don't understand this couple because they're really keen, but then they're not, and then they're really keen. And then they were like, again, they just got back in touch and they're really keen. Anyway, long story short is, I was working alongside a photographer, and the photographer had obviously done weddings that they'd been there before. Right. So it's always a bit weird when they really kind of know and pally with the photographer.
Yeah, I've been in that situation.
And they don't know you, and you're not kind of as in the inner circle. And there's obviously some, there are people at the wedding whose weddings the photographer's already done, so she knows half of the bridal party. And, you feel a bit like weird on those days, like a bit of an outsider.
Yeah.
But yeah, it all was fine in the end. But it's odd, isn't it? How like it all kind of works. But it's good if you get those personal referrals, because they usually tend to be a lot. You're less sort of second guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
You're thinking, I'm just going to do my thing, and that's what they're going to like because they've seen me do it before.
Yeah.
So we'll just take a quick rewind. So like the circumstances why you needed an associate shooter. You don't have to go into loads of detail, but you can just tell a little bit of the story, because that's like a real thing, isn't it? Like we've all talked about COVID, and COVID was a complete clusterfuck of, I've got to just keep it together. Like I've got people rearranging to the same day, and I've come down with COVID and I can't go out the house. So I can't shoot the wedding. You've got to find people in those situations. And that was quite a unique thing. But stuff that happens, like shit happens. And so you might need an associate, or you might get let down by a second shooter, and you might need to find someone pretty quick. So what happened with that?
I think, well, the COVID ones, it was just a case of dates getting double booked. So people had postponed, and then once COVID had lifted for the first time or whatnot, people rebooked for the following year or however many months after. And then other couples tried to book the same dates, and I couldn't be two places at once. So I basically just gave them the option by saying, you can have an associate and I'll edit it so you get the same style and same look and whatnot, or I can give you your deposit back and you can find someone else and I'll help you find someone. So luckily everyone wanted the associate shooter. Well, I think there was 2 or 3 in the end wanted the associate shooter. So yeah, that's really the only reason it happened. I don't think I'd have ever gone down the associate shooting route if I wasn't stuck in that situation. But yeah, I think it probably made me realise that I can not be so protective over my work and whatnot, because there is other people out there that can do just as good a job as me. I think a lot of people do get a bit sideswept with how precious it is. Well, I don't even know what the word is. What's the word? How they get very... I don't even know what the word is here. I'm going to just repeat myself, but they just get really protective over...
I think precious sounds...
precious.
About particular and precious over...
capturing a wedding day, but in reality, a wedding day is pretty much the same as every other wedding day, isn't it? I mean, like the routine of it anyway. The majority of weddings kind of flow the same. So an experienced photographer with a similar style to you is just going to do just as good a job as you, really. Yeah. So it kind of made me relax into that.
But that's with photo, and then with photo, and then with the video. Like you already said, it was like harder putting that together because I'd shot it and you didn't feel like you kind of knew. And so like from my perspective, I didn't shoot that exactly the same as I would normally. And I kind of told you a bit about that, but it was like, I don't normally take such short clips, but I knew that if I gave you like clips that were like a minute or two long of me fucking waving the camera
Yeah.
around, you're going to be like, what is he doing? Like, what is he doing?
So
Why
that's
is he giving me
interesting.
this?
So you film longer clips and move them around, and you basically just
because I'm doing those
skim
doc
through
edits.
skim through the clips and find the bits that you want in your highlights. Ah, there you go.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that that's every single clip, but like that'll be more than 50% will be like that.
Yeah.
So there'll be some short clips in there that are similar to what I gave you, but like the way that I'll tell you how I filmed, because I don't normally do it like that. I was actually actively counting.
Oh, were you really?
If you went and looked at those clips, if you went and looked at those clips, you would. Well, I didn't count them as in like I wasn't going one and two. Can you imagine listening to audio and I'm going 1, 2, 3. But what I was doing was I was watching the counter. So I was watching the record counter, and when it got to somewhere between 10 and 15 seconds, I was typically stopping recording. So if you watch them, you'll probably find that those clips are all between 10 and 15 seconds
that's
long.
Absolutely adorable.
Or the majority of them
that's
will be.
Adorable.
But that's because normally I just kind of like move the camera around, and I'll tell you why I do it. Because I will take longer clips. Like sometimes I'll get, much longer than sort of 10, 20 seconds or something. And also I like the audio. Mm-hmm. So I want longer clips of audio because I'm using the live audio in the doc edit to kind of be the bed of the music. So, or the kind of bed of the audio. Yeah. So that you get all the sounds. And if I take small clips, I'm having to like piece together all these little clips. Yeah. Whereas if I just get some audio of people talking, or like the music, the live music, because they had like musicians at that one. So like I might want a song of the musicians playing to use as one of the songs or something in the doc edit. So I'll have the whole clip.
Totally different way of working. That's interesting. So did you enjoy it, or did you find it difficult the way I tend to shoot?
I didn't find it difficult, and I did enjoy it. But I had to think about it.
You had to concentrate a little bit more,
which was different because I felt like I was. I mean, for example, this is why, and I'm bringing this up because if you're going to associate shoot, this is actually something you may not, but you might do. And I did it because I was thinking, I can go shoot a wedding and it can look really shit from a raw footage perspective, but I know what I'm putting together. Yeah. Whereas if you're associate shooting, you have to kind of try and put yourself in the shoes of someone else and think, what will make me look really shit is if I press record and then I'm framing my shot and I'm fucking wiggling the camera around and then like I've got this. And you might even look at some of the footage and say, that's what I was doing, because that's how I'm used to shooting. Like I do not frame a shot, wait for 10 seconds until everything's completely still and then press record. Because I'm like, I just think, I want to film that, but I don't know how long it's going to last for. So I press record, I point the camera, because there might be a bit of audio that I might want off it. There might be someone might be going in to kiss grandma or whatever. And I'm like, I want to get kissing grandma for the doc edit. Now, whether it makes the creative film, it probably doesn't, because I wasn't framed properly and I'm moving the camera around a bit too much. But I'll put it in the doc edit because it's important. It's an important moment. And then obviously, if I hold it, then there might be a few seconds of wiggling around, and then I might recompose it, re-expose it. That'll go in the highlight. Yeah. But do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, that's kind of how I usually do it. So it is different. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I take it that's not how you do it.
That's not how I do it. No, I think I'm kind of going back from the old days of like when I was at uni and being taught, and if we were doing like a documentary film or whatnot, like the B-roll stuff, it was always like, don't keep it around 10 seconds. You don't need it any longer than 10 seconds. So in my head, I'm like, right, 10 seconds is enough for all the B-roll. bits and bobs. And to be fair, like the way I edit, yeah, it does kind of work for me. There was a. I tell you what, interestingly, I mean, like we mentioned, a videography company, didn't we? That I said that I'd just been looking at, and I quite like their style. And there was a few clips in the footage that you captured for me, which was quite similar, and it was like handheld movement. And I think, as you were explaining earlier, you press record, you move the camera around until you capture what you need to capture. And like in them movements, there was actually quite a nice. It was quite nice, and it was almost a nice flow into the next clip. So I've even added a bit of like camera movement where normally I'll have this camera
It's very
pretty
still.
still and just shoot that moment handheld, but in a still frame, if you see what I mean, where it's made me think maybe I will add a bit more movement into my footage. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And the way I kind of like it is mainly because I'm shooting for two purposes, like the doc and the creative edit. But I'm also thinking, I know that technically I should wait to press record until I'm framed and exposed correctly. But because weddings are live and because they're happening so quick, the way that I didn't come from like a filming background. I didn't, by the time I'm doing weddings, I haven't learned how to do it properly, if you like, at uni or whatever.
I wouldn't say
I wouldn't
say doing it is properly the way I do it. It's I mean, a lot of it, thinking about it, it doesn't really make sense, does it? The way you're doing it probably makes more sense than the way I'm doing it. Especially doing a doc edit.
I don't know.
Do you not think? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many people do doc edits though.
Yeah.
But
maybe there's a middle ground to it.
I think there's definitely a middle ground, but as well so one of the reasons I kind of stopped shooting with a monopod quite early on was because if you're shooting with a monopod, it slows you down massively, doesn't it? Like you have to kind of move the monopod into position, and then there's this weird thing where you're trying to get the monopod. Well. Yeah, you're trying to move the height up and down, and then you're trying to like if you've got like a fluid head on top, you're trying to tilt it up and down so you get the right angle. Then you're trying to like get the camera looking and framed, and then you might have to like turn it again just to like slightly recompose it, and then like by the time you've done that, the fucking whatever was happening is gone. Oh, that's what I found.
I totally agree. I'm the same. Yeah, I don't really use monopods at all anymore. No.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when's the next second shooter working for you then? Or associate?
Well, I asked you about that one next week, but I was going to say, because it's only for a couple of hours and I don't want you to have to drive. Like basically, you'd spend more time in the car than you would actually shooting the job.
Well, do you need someone to cover it then?
And that's only... No, well, what I've done is my brother, who has done some like video stuff with me previously, he's in a so he's a musician. He's in a wedding band. Yeah. So he's got a wedding that day, but it's not till later on. So part of it is me and Lindsay are down to one car at the moment. So the logistics of this job just got really complicated all of a sudden because of where the groom is going to be at the venue, but the bride's going to be at her house, and it's like 40 minutes away from the venue, and everything was cool.
Why do people do that?
Until I don't know.
Well, if for any reason you need it, just give us a shout because I can jump on the band.
I appreciate it, mate. But what I've basically done is my brother's going to be able to come, and then the good thing is he's gonna have his car, so he'll be able to drive Lindsay to the venue.
Yeah. Okay,
and then
cool.
He can stay for like an hour because he doesn't have to go to his next job for a bit.
Yeah.
So like I can get him to do that, and then I'm not asking you to drive what will be like about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive for you to go somewhere for like 2 hours with a bride prep.
Well, if needs be, I owe you a couple of favours, so it's no bother for me if you need it, bud.
But the funny thing about that was it was like I didn't realise. So like I'm talking to him in the meeting last week, and they were going. started saying about wanting to get these photos, and Mum's been planting loads of white flowers in the garden and wanting to get these family photos before they set off to the the ceremony.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to not be there, so Lindsay will be by herself. She's gonna have to do photo and video, and then she's gonna have to get these photos, and she's gonna have to and we haven't got a car, and that's why I was like, I need another person here just to sort this out. It's getting too complicated.
Like some photos that they'll look at once and never see again, which is always the case, isn't it? Which causes you a logistical nightmare.
It's kind of changed all my plans. Yeah. Yeah, and it's changed all my plans now. So
the thought,
but that's fine.
There, isn't it? But yeah,
it's an interesting one, this wedding though, because it's one where, like, when I booked it, I was like, yeah, no worries, and then I've realised, they're having fireworks at like 10:30 at night.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's like, oh gosh, summer firework weddings,
killer. Yeah, I don't know why they do that.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
But yeah, associate shooting, second shooting, all fun and games. I think it's really intriguing when I see those posts on Facebook where people are just kind of getting random people.
I almost think like it's just a tick in the box for them, isn't it? It's like, you've asked for a second shooter, I've provided one. I don't think they initially think about the consequences of just getting somebody that maybe isn't the right fit for that job.
What if they're like a real weird dick as well? Like, like they turn up and you've never met them before, and then you're thinking, oh my gosh, like, you're representing my business, but like it's not even like I can be, oblivious to what's happening. I'm here and you're here, and like I'm thinking, I don't understand you.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, actually, before we do go, a little story for you. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I went on Gumtree and found a second shooting job. No, I didn't.
Get a second shooter?
Yeah, I'm telling a lie, actually. I found a job through Gumtree.
Right.
No, actually. Okay, I
found the best stories start with Gumtree.
Don't they? I found a job through Gumtree. I put a little post out. I can't remember what it was. Something to do with a wedding video. And this bridesmaid got in touch with me and booked me as a surprise for her best friend who was the bride. And I think I got maybe like 50, surprise, got like 50 quid or something for it. And the photographer got in touch with me and said, can you do a bit of second shooting as well? So I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, fucking, I've never done, this is like one of my first ever weddings and I'm already doing the second shooting job. And turned up on the day, and like the main photographer, so like this is the other side of it. The main photographer was an utter arsehole. Like he was like shouting at people, like the old school, what you'd expect him to he was literally dragging people left, right and center. And I was like, oh man, this is not like how I envisioned like photographing a wedding. And it was just horrendous. You could, even like the bride and groom were just getting pissed off with this guy. I can't remember what his name is, but I wouldn't mention it anyway. But it was, it was hard work. It was really hard work. So even as a second shooter, I suppose it's also important to know who you're going to work with. And really, you kind of want to work with someone that you're going to get on with, or you're going to learn from, or you're just going to have a good laugh with, or it's the style of wedding that you're going to want to shoot yourself. And even, I suppose, as a second shoot as well, it might benefit if you're allowed to use them photographs for your own portfolio and whatnot. Where I know like quite a few main photographers don't really like them doing that, do they?
Yeah, what's your stance on that then? How do you feel about that?
I don't think I'd really mind. I don't think I'd really... It wouldn't bother... I don't think it'd bother me too much. I can't see a reason why it would upset me greatly. I think there was only one occasion where I thought this is a little bit weird, where I got a second shooter and they added the couple on Instagram and like they were tagging them in that. I'm not quite sure about that side of it.
Tagging them in photos?
Yeah. I mean, like, it didn't bother me that much, but I thought, oh, it's a little bit weird.
No, that's out of
Yeah, it
order.
was a little bit.
I think that's out of order unless you've had that conversation
Couldn't
and
quite get my head around that.
That's absolutely fine.
It wasn't for me. It wasn't like one of these weddings that I'm going to be showcasing much of. But so I didn't. It didn't bother me.
Yeah, but that might be worse because they might start showing photos at the wedding that you wouldn't necessarily.
It wasn't like a horrendous wedding or whatnot. It's just little specifics. I mean, like another podcast that we can go into is what to show on Instagram and whatnot to book the ideal client or something. But it was just like his suit wasn't the type of suit that I'd, something simple like that. But like, I mean, they didn't tag me in it or anything, so it's not a biggie really. But I mean, like, ultimately, if someone wanted to put their images on the website, I don't think I'd really have that much of an issue because it is their photos. Maybe my wedding, but no. Do you have a problem with it?
Not the website. No, I think if they've taken the photo and they want to put it on the website as part of their portfolio, if they've taken what they think is a nice image and they want to use that, that's fine. Instagram, I guess, but I think you've definitely got to clear that with whoever's wedding it was, because it's not just the photographer you might upset, but the couple. We handle the communication with the couple. So we know whether they're going to want those images on there. We know whether they're going to want some random fucker adding them. I have, however, done weddings before where I'm trying to think of an example. I know it's happened where I've shot a wedding with someone else or for someone else, and then they've the couples. Who was it now? I'm trying to think. I don't think it will have been you, but there was one where the couple, the bride, followed me on Facebook, but I'd shot the wedding for someone else, and I'm thinking I don't feel comfortable about this, but then at the same time, I didn't want to be rude.
We always mentioned this couple on our podcast, Jen and Elliot. That was a good wedding, that. Did you work for me on that one, or did they book you? I can't remember now.
They booked me separately. Yeah. I mean, you recommended me.
Yeah, maybe it was that. I couldn't remember.
But the booking was with me. But no, there was. I wish I could remember which wedding it was. But there was definitely a wedding where, and like when I was working for you the other day, I was very clear. Like I remember now that it wasn't. This is a different example, but I remember I'm in bride prep, and the makeup artist or hairstylist, whichever it was saying, "What's your Instagram?" And I was like,
"Was this the other day?"
When I was working for you, and I was like, "Well, I'm working on behalf of Kieran, and so I'm not going to give you my details." And she was like, "No, you can give me it." And I'm like, "It's Kieran Paul, but I'm not Kieran." And that's who's doing this wedding. Dude. Like, I don't want to give you.
If it was the opposite way around, I'd have been like, it's Kieran Paul. Jules from Your Story Films doesn't exist. No, mate, you didn't need to do that.
No, Well,
I wouldn't have minded though. Like, it wouldn't have. Hey, you've got to plug. You won't. This business, but like, where you can.
I did say who I was. I did say who I was, but I was like, do not tag me in anything because I don't want anybody who sees that to think that I've done this wedding because it's not my name. Because for me, that's just respect for, you've asked me to do something, you pay me to do a job. I'm not here. It's like, can you imagine, it's the sort of story where people are giving out business cards, when they're second shooting for people and shit like that. And it's like, you can't do stuff like that. No.
Well, that's very good.
I've heard podcasts where people have been talking about it and they've got examples of it happening, and you're thinking like, who would think that's actual
okay to do?
Good idea, yeah.
Jeez, well, it's a brutal world we live in, isn't it?
It is, but I think if you're that desperate for work, I mean, it does bring up another thing. What is the point of second shooting? Is the point of second shooting for the second shooter to help out the main shooter by having that extra pair of hands? And is the second shooter's role there to get experience, upskill themselves, get, that sort of thing? Or, is it actually a job? Because I haven't done a lot of second shooting, and I've second shot for you. I've associate shot for you, and a couple, like I've helped people out that I've known, but I've never really done it as a thing, because for me, certainly second shooting doesn't pay enough to. There's no business sense in making a full-time thing out of second shooting.
Saying that though, like I was thinking this the other day, where we're based, I think the average for second shooters is 250 to 350 quid a day, isn't it?
That's the sort of rates that you see
you'd be looking at around our area. If you could get one of them every weekend, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to make a good living out of it, but you've got yourself a bit of money there, haven't you? 1,500 quid a month. Not too bad. 1,200 quid a month.
What sort of maths are you doing?
1,200 quid a month, 300 quid a wedding.
I suppose if it's like 250, 300 quid a wedding, and you did one every weekend, you might make around $1,000.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, which is fine if you've got a job.
Yeah,
and that's your kind of like extra money. But I think like 12 grand a year. If you were getting around 1,000 quid a month, 12 grand a year isn't really enough.
It's not.
It might be all right if you're a student.
Yeah,
but not if you've got like a house to pay for and stuff. Yeah. And your thing is, well, all right, I don't actually agree with those figures, and I see this get argued in the groups a bit.
What, the cost of a second shooter?
Yeah, and this isn't about like what I think I should get paid or anything. This is just in terms of, I see people who do lots of second shooting, and I don't like. It's funny because we've got a different take on it. You've just said it's quite good money. Well, I think, if someone's gone out and bought themselves, I'd expect anybody who's shooting a wedding to have 2 cameras. Yeah. So they've got to have at least 2 lenses and a flash and a bag. So if someone's gone out and spent maybe $5,000 minimum on getting that kit, $3,000 to $5,000, you can't really get a setup with like decent cameras and lenses for less than that. If they've gone out and bought that stuff, and they've got to maintain it, make sure it works, keep it going. If that's their business, if that's their job, so they're going to have to replace it sometimes. They're going to have to keep it up. They're probably going to need their own insurances and that sort of thing. So they're not going to be huge costs, but there are going to be some costs involved. And then they're getting paid 250 quid a wedding. Again, everyone can do whatever they want, but I couldn't do that as a full-time job.
No, you couldn't do it as a full-time job. And I think the fact is that if you're going to be spending that much money on equipment, I don't think you'd be looking at it as thinking, I'm going to be a full-time second shooter. I think you'd be thinking, I'm going to gain my experience and shoot my own weddings, but at the same time, shoot second shooting jobs on the side to bring in some extra dollar. Do you not?
So that's the thing. Like, I'll do it for people when I know them, and I want to help them out.
So what if it was just a standard second shooting job? What do you think a good rate would be? You're going to dig. Don't tell me.
That's why I think it's awkward.
Because you're going to dig yourself a hole.
Well, no, because this is it. No, because
you're going to need a second shooter one day, and you can be like, I think we should pay them like 800 quid.
I'm going to be paying you
like,
that.
Anyone, can I have a second shooter? And they're like, yeah, 800 quid, I'll be yours.
But that's the thing, you see. It's like, this is how I've always seen it. So this isn't about me. I've not gone out and purposefully shot for loads. Like, I see the benefit of second shooting for people. So I would like to second shoot for people, like more people, because I would like to get the experience of seeing how other people work. And I think that would be a brilliant learning opportunity. And there's a lot less responsibility and pressure if you're second shooting compared to taking on your own wedding. But if I can get a couple of grand or more for shooting a wedding, one of mine, like, you know, that's it. I'm starting, like, I'm not shooting weddings now. Typically, I'm not going to say I never shoot a wedding for less than $2,000, but everything's $2,000 plus. That's pretty much what I'm going for. You know, sometimes a lot more than that. So if that's what I'm going to get for let's say my Saturday, I've always thought, why do people take on 20, 30 second shooting jobs a year and only 5 or 10 of their own? Now, it's different if for whatever reason you haven't got a lot of bookings, maybe you've just started out, or maybe you've kind of like taken a bit of a break and you're wanting to go a bit slower, and then you think, oh, I've got some time on my hands, I'll do some second shooting. Cool, totally different story. But if you're purposefully trying to run a business and you think, well, if you treat all those bookings as equal and you've got one where it's your own wedding and you can get paid £1,000, 2,000 quid, 3,000 quid, whatever it is, and then you're going to take 250 quid for a second shooting job instead, but you're going to do that 10, 20, 30 times that year. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think it's just...
You could work one day and get paid for 10 weddings.
Yeah. I think, though, do you not think it could be people's circumstances that they're doing that? So maybe they don't need to earn that X amount of money a year. Maybe it's kind of... they've got a target of, I don't know, 25 grand a year, and they've hit that target, and then they can fill up some extra time, earning some extra cash for holidays by second shooting 10 extra weddings a year, and then they don't have the pressure of editing and getting all these things done. They've got more family time. I don't know. I mean, like, I'm sure it's just more down to the circumstances and that, isn't it?
No, I can totally appreciate that. My thought process on that is, I get it. I'd rather do one wedding.
Yeah.
Have all the pressure and then have the same amount of money.
Yeah,
as doing 5 or 10 weddings.
Yeah.
Because for me, my most important thing at this point in my life, and it is different for everybody, but I don't want to be out every weekend. So I'd rather do one of my own weddings than have to work 5 to 10 weekends. Or whatever day of the week, but they're usually going to be around weekends.
Yeah.
And earn the same money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
even if there is an edit. I mean, let's be honest, the photo edit's a piece of piss these days, especially with AI.
Yeah, it is.
Let's just say it as it is. It doesn't take people that long to edit a photo wedding.
No, easy peasy.
Although I just seen somebody who I worked with 2 months ago, they must have just sent the photos to the couple. I did the video. I must have sent the video 6 weeks ago. So, like, people are taking a long time over it, but I know what that's like. You know, sometimes if you've got backlogs and stuff, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I know what that's like, but I know some people are kind of are still taking the time over it, I suppose.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, interesting one. Yeah, I think it's it's an interesting one. In my head, I quite like I don't do it very often at all. I quite like the idea of second shooting just because I'm done at the end of the day. But yes, your view on shooting one wedding rather than shooting 10-second weddings definitely also makes sense, doesn't it? So I don't really know where we're going with this subject. But
I would actually like the experience of doing it.
Yeah.
I just purely from like a business
view,
and a business perspective, but also like I want the time at home. I want the time with my family. Mm-hmm. I want the time to do other things rather than have to work all those extra the wedding at the start of your career when you're starting out, which a lot of people who listen to this might be early on. I think that there's nothing better that you could do.
Yeah,
you know, if you haven't got your own job to shoot, is going second shoot with people because you'll learn so much, you'll get so much experience, and you're getting paid at the same time. You know, it's a win-win. And if you probably do want to be doing more volume to start with, because that's how you get you get better.
Build that portfolio up.
But once you get to a certain point, and again, like you can negotiate, can't you, and say, I want to be able to use the photos, or can I don't know. Oh, here's one. Sorry, I know we're going to wrap it up.
Go on.
Would you let someone make their own video edit if they second shot for you? Make their own edit of the film.
Oh no, I'd feel awkward about that one.
Why? What's the difference?
I don't know. Well,
I'm not saying I disagree with that, but what's the difference?
More the fact, I don't know really. That is a tricky one. I think
now
more the
we're
fact
in a place
that
where people are making videos on reels and stuff, so they're gonna use stuff like that.
I think it's more the fact that like with a video you can create a lot of different ways to perceive like what's going on, whereas a photo, it's just a photo, isn't it? You know what I mean? You can create a totally different story out of a video. I don't know. I think if...
What if they were just getting like the confetti shot and stuff like that and just posting that on a reel and stuff like that?
I don't think I'd mind that much. Would you?
Yeah. No, I don't think I'd mind that. I think if they were making their own...
If they were making their own
creative
like, highlight film.
Edits.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure. I
but
don't
then
know.
again, like...
As long as they don't tag the couple in it,
make me look shit because theirs is better.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, could you imagine? Maybe that's why I don't like the idea of it, because they might do a better edit than me. I don't know. Yeah, that's a funny one. That it's touched a nerve with me, Jules. That one, I don't like it.
Well, I'll hide it when I put that edit out I've done of your wedding.
Feel free. To be fair, if you can send them it, that'd be great. Feel free, dude.
To be fair, like I was thinking, because you'd obviously said like you can just send me the footage and I'll edit it because I've already got like stuff on, and I was listening to speeches thinking, these are better than a lot of speeches I've had for the last few months. I wish I were doing this.
Feel free, Jules. Feel free. I'll give you 50 quid.
Sorry. Do you know, right? I'll tell you. So this I can't, but this is like off on a tangent. I have shot for people before. In fact, I shot for a really well-known videographer, like somebody who's a bit OG in this space, who's really, really known and respected. And I shot for her twice. Well, technically I haven't. Lindsay has, but that's another story. But I've done it. And both times I just did the edit because it was such a good wedding. Like at the time, these weddings were miles better than any other weddings I'd shot.
What? And then you delivered the edited wedding to her? Wow.
So she didn't ask me to, she just asked me to film the wedding. I can't believe I'm telling this story, but it's cool. But it's funny because all the stuff we've just been talking about, and I've just realised and remembered that that's what I actually did. So I filmed the wedding. I was there and I had all the raw footage to give her, but I was really keen. I was learning, and I wanted to kind of impress her. And there was a bit of a delay with her getting in touch with me and saying, "Can you send the footage and stuff?" And I just gave it a crack and edited the thing. And I did this on two different occasions, like about a year or so apart. And both times she just delivered the edit.
No way.
And
what did she say to you? Was she grateful?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
But she said, I can't pay for it. And I was like, don't matter.
Below my neck. I'm surprised she doesn't get in touch with you every week.
And both of those films were on my portfolio for ages.
Oh, were they? Interesting. I'll have to ask you which ones they were after this.
I mean, they're not there now, but at the time, the weddings looked miles better than a lot of the other weddings I was doing.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah.
Bloody hell.
I'll tell you the full detail about that, but it's another topic that we will talk about another time, but it's about opportunities. and how
That sounds like a good one. Yeah.
you can, how you can, like, one of those questions that always gets asked is, should you ever work for free? And should you ever, or should you ever discount and things like that? And it's like, some of the opportunities that I've had and taken in the past, they have been game changers. Yeah. And I would say that those, in a way, they didn't bring a lot in terms of outside stuff, but they definitely those weddings definitely bolstered my portfolio, and I definitely booked work off the strength of those weddings.
I think that should be our next topic. Opportunities.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Cool. Right. So we'll finish with Song of the Week. I didn't get much time.
We keep trying to make these podcasts shorter, don't we? We're not.
This one's definitely.
Do you think
10 minutes short?
10 minutes shorter. We need to get it under the hour. We're really struggling, aren't we?
It's not working out.
We'll get there. We will get there. We will get there. What's this music?
This week's Song of the Week from Musicbed. It's called "Take My Hand" by Secret Nation. It's kind of quite a pop focused, upbeat song, like very jovial. A lot more, probably not something I don't think it was something that you would use. I've used it before in an edit where I needed a bit more vocal, help me carry that story a little bit. So yeah, there's an instrumental and a vocal version, but yeah, they work really nicely together, and it's very upbeat. Cool. It's been good talking to you again, mate. And we can talk about that topic that we were just talking about on the next one, and in a couple of weeks we'll have worked together again. We should try and record something in like the dinner hour or something while we're doing that.
That's
a good idea.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
Cool.
The chaos
care,
that commences. Catch you later.
Oh, I never thought I could get the chance to be here with you. Two crazy fools, two left feet, step by step, heartbeat by beat. Life's a song, love's a dance. So come and take my hand. When life is hard, when hope is real, when what was broken starts to heal. Oh, you've been changing me from flying high to breaking falls. Learning money don't mean that you have it all. You've been changing me. Just take some time, but little by little, yeah, we'll get it right.